One of the things that Frankie Bard reports on Edward R. Murrow's Air, as I wrote it, is reporting on a boy named Billy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pivotal part in the book. Could you read from that area, please?
Yes, I would. So this is a section that the book alternates between broadcast and then inside the radio you'll hear both Frankie's broadcast and then her sitting in the studio.
Great.
The boy had run up the steps of his own smashed house 2 doors down and stopped on the threshold. "Mom?" he called. Frankie's voice broke there on the word Mum, and Murrow, sitting right beside her, put his hand on her arm. She shook her head. "Mum?" he called to his house. He'd come home. "Mom?" he called again with the faith any child calls out to his house, never mind the bombs. His mother would always come down the stairs when he called. Any minute she would come, or come around the corner from the kitchen into the hallway. "Mummy?" Now he was asking. Now he was knowing. From the sidewalk, I heard the shift in the boy's voice, though his small back was still straight in the open doorway. Frankie put both hands on the base of the microphone and closed her eyes, forcing her voice to keep steady, forcing the imaginary ball in her head to stay floating, stay up, to carry the story forward, though tears were sliding through her shut lids. "Billy!" A woman brushed past me on the walkway, and Billy turned around. "Have you got Mum?" "Oh, Billy," the woman said, very softly. And then the boy crumpled in the doorway where he stood, the familiar voice cutting the string that had held him upright. Frankie's hands were holding so tight to the microphone that it had gone hot against her palms. She took a breath and went in for the end. This is how a war knocks down the regular, steady life we set up against the wolf at the door. Because the wolf is not hunger, it is accident, the horrid, fatal mistake of turning left to go to the nearer tube station, rather than right to take the long way round. There is the sense one gets walking around London at night of a god grown sleepy, tired of holding the whole vast world in his gaze, tired of making sense, so that shards of glass dagger babies in their beds, boys come home to empty houses, and the woman and the man who had just lain down to sleep are crushed. Harriet Mendelsohn of the Associated Press died last night in the bombs. She had been covering the war in Europe for 2 years. If a journalist goes down, tradition has it that others of us in the press corps step in to file their story. And the story of the boy coming home is a story she would have written, only better, far better than I. I tell it to you tonight because Harriet can't. This is Frankie Bard in London. Good night.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And a lot of the rest of the story arc of the book is Frankie's taking over for Harriet, trying to tell the world what's happening to Jews across Europe because of the Nazi pogrom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an incredible busy part of the book, it seems to me,
mm-hmm.
where she's constantly on the move, constantly, one step ahead of fatality.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. But at the same time that's going on, something's happening back in Massachusetts with a woman called Emma.
And the way in which the novel moves is on broadcasts. And so Frankie will give these broadcasts, and then the book the next paragraph will be the listeners at home. So
that's a kind of a nervous-making thing for those of us in broadcasting, however humble, to realize that maybe somebody's really listening.
Right.
Really, and it gives you a sense of responsibility.
Well, and I think, too, that sense that the story doesn't end, with just the storyteller, that it takes off on its own.
Yeah.
And those thing. And in fact, Emma is listening to the broadcast that I just gave. And so right after we hear Frankie say, "This is Frankie Bard in London, good night," In the quiet after the voice stopped, Emma found herself stuck at the sink with a cigarette halfway to her lips, remembering being 5 and standing on the doorstep of her great-aunt's house, staring at the door, waiting to meet them after her parents had died. And it hit Emma for the first time that the voice on the other end of the radio was a woman like herself, only over there. And she wondered what the radio gal had done in the seconds right after the boy had slid to his knees.
Yeah.
And that's that idea that that a war story or a war photograph is carrying on past the borders of it is very much something I wanted to try and capture in this.